Captain Marvel. The narrow-gauge engines in the hills of Sodor always want to hear stories. Their favourite ones are about a magical engine called Proteus. Peter Sam enjoys these stories most of all. One morning, Peter Sam puffed into the transfer yards. He was very excited. Thomas is collecting the famous storyteller Mary Marvel. She is going to read at a special show. All the little engines whistled and wheeshed. I hope she tells stories about Proteus. Then the thin controller arrived. He gave them all special jobs. There is a lot to do. Please be back in good time for Miss Marvel. The little engines peeped their whistles excitedly. Peter Sam collected the cream churns quickly. I hope I'm the first to see Miss Marvel, he huffed to himself. So Peter Sam raced away. The churns clinked and clanked, and his wheels clickety-clacked. Freddie was waiting at a junction. He had a lot to do. You're in a hurry. Yes, I want to be the first engine to see Miss Marvel. I'm going to take a shortcut to the showground. And Peter Sam raced away down an old twisty track. Peter Sam huffed and puffed to the top of the old twisty track. Whee! He whistled as he rolled down the other side. Then he saw a thick hedge across the track. Oh no! Peter Sam crashed through the hedge. With a clang and a prang, he hit something hard. Fizzling fireboxes. There, in front of Peter Sam, was a statue of Proteus. It was sitting on a rusty old flatbed. Some farm workers appeared to see what the noise was. Oh my, look! It's a statue of Proteus. It looks very old. Peter Sam thought his boiler would burst. Then an idea flew into his funnel. No one must see the statue before the show. It will be my wonderful surprise, and I will be the star of the show, he thought. Peter Sam tooted to the workers. Please, can you cover the statue? I'll be back to collect it soon. Peter Sam chuffed quickly back to the top of the old track. He stopped at the junction. Duncan chuffed up. He still had to collect benches for the show. Duncan, when you come back, don't take the shortcut. There's something blocking the track. Thank you very much. And Duncan chuffed off. Next, Mighty Mac pulled up. He still had to pick up flowers for the show. When you come back, please don't take the shortcut. There's something blocking the track. Thank you. And Mighty Mac chuffed off. Then Freddie puffed up. He still had to pick up lanterns for the show. Freddie, when you come back, please don't take the shortcut. There's something blocking the track. Ah, thank you. And he chuffed off. Peter Sam was pleased. Now the statue of Proteus was sure to be a surprise. The farm workers had covered the statue of Proteus. Peter Sam was coupled up to the flatbed. Peter Sam pumped his pistons. The cream churns were heavy, but Proteus' statue was even heavier. Peter Sam huffed and puffed to the top of the hill. Now I can roll down the other side, he thought. Peter Sam raced down the hill. There was a junction ahead. Oh no, this load is too heavy. Help! Peter Sam smashed into a buffer. The cream churns crashed. The junction was blocked. Bubbling boilers. I'll never be the star of the show now. The other engines can't get through. I've spoiled everything for everyone. Then Peter Sam heard the whistles of his friends. Duncan, Freddy and Mighty Mac arrived at the junction. They were surprised at the mess. Peter Sam felt very silly. "I'm sorry. I wanted to be the star of Miss Marvel's show." He told them about finding the statue of Proteus. The engines gasped. "The statue belongs to us all. Please, will you help me take it to the show?" His friends were happy to help. Duncan chuffed away to find an engineer for Peter Sam. Mighty Mac puffed to tell Mr. Percival about the statue. "Freddy, will you take Proteus to the show?" Freddy was delighted. It would be an honour. Soon the engineer fixed Peter Sam's brakes. "Now you're ready to go, Peter Sam." Later, Peter Sam collected fresh cream from the farm. "I know Miss Marvel's show has started, but all the other engines will be there to enjoy the statue." Peter Sam chuffed his long way back. Peter Sam puffed up quietly. Miss Marvel was just finishing her last story. Oh my! The statue is still covered. "Today, one of our engines found something very special. So this is for all the little engines of the hills, because you are all special." Everyone gasped at the wonderful statue. The engines whistled. Peter Sam smiled. "We are all stars of the show." Duncan and the hot air balloon. It was a beautiful day in the hills of Sodor. It was also the Thin Controller's twins' birthday. Every year, Duncan gave the twins a special birthday ride. Duncan was excited. At the depot, Duncan was getting ready. He had to look his best. His special birthday flag had been fixed to his cab. Duncan was very proud of his flag. Mr. Percival came to see Duncan. "Shall I pick up the twins now?" "No, Duncan. This year I'm giving them a ride in a hot air balloon for their birthday." Duncan was disappointed. He wanted to give the twins their birthday treat. "Duncan, you must collect a hot air balloon from the transfer yards." "Yes, sir." And he chuffed sadly away. Duncan pulled into the transfer yards. Thomas had brought the balloon from the docks. The balloon man was filling it with hot air. "Hello, Duncan." "Hello, Thomas." "That's a wonderful balloon." "You be sure to puff slowly and carefully." So Duncan huffed slowly away to Mr. Percival's house. On his way, Duncan rolled over a bumpy track. His flatbed clanked, rattled and jiggled. One of the ropes holding down the balloon came undone. "Oh dear," thought Duncan. "The bumpy track has jiggled the balloon loose. What shall I do?" Then an idea flew into Duncan's funnel. "If I jiggle the balloon more, it might float away. Then I could give the twins a ride today, and they could have a balloon ride tomorrow." So Duncan began to jiggle backwards and forwards over the bumpy track. The ropes loosened, and the balloon floated away. "Hooray!" And Duncan chuffed cheerily to the Thin Controller's house. Duncan puffed round a bend. Then he stopped. The hot air balloon had floated down. It was right in front of him on the track. Duncan bumped into the balloon. "Flatten my funnel. Now what should I do?" The basket wobbled and one of the sandbags fell off. It made the balloon rise up a little. Duncan was puzzled. He biffed the balloon again. More sandbags fell off. The balloon rose higher and floated away. Duncan was delighted. Duncan chuffed round another bend. Bus my buffet! There, on the bridge above him, was the balloon. I thought the balloon had floated away. What shall I do now? He thought. Duncan chuffed his biggest puff. The hot smoke from his funnel flew into the balloon. It made the balloon get bigger. This gave Duncan an idea. He huffed and puffed and puffed and huffed. The balloon got bigger and bigger and floated away. Duncan was delighted. He raced to the thin controller's house. The thin controller was waiting for him. Where's the hot air balloon, Duncan? It came loose, sir, and floated away. The thin controller was upset. Then there was trouble. The balloon floated down from the sky once again, straight towards the weather vane on the thin controller's roof. It burst on the sharp point. The balloon tumbled down. Fizzling fireboxes. Duncan was upset. Now the twins wouldn't have their balloon ride at all. It's all my fault, sir. I just wanted to give the twins their birthday treat, just as I always have. The thin controller was cross. Duncan, you were going to give the twins their birthday ride. You were going to pick them up and bring them here. Duncan felt even more upset. He wanted the twins to have a happy day. Sir, Peter Sam could pick up the twins. Then I will go and collect the balloon repairman. I'm sure he could fix the balloon. The thin controller thought this was a very good idea. So Duncan puffed quickly away. Duncan raced into Mountain Village Station. The balloon repairman was waiting. We must be quick, sir. The balloon has to be fixed before the twins get home. Duncan chuffed quickly back to the thin controller's house. The thin controller was very pleased to see them. The balloon repairman looked at the hole in the balloon. Oh dear, it's a very big hole. I don't have enough material to fix it. I know, sir. My birthday flag, it might just be big enough. The balloon repairman looked at Duncan's flag. Well, yes, Duncan. That would be perfect. The balloon repairman fixed the balloon just in time. Peter Sam arrived with the twins. They were delighted. Soon, Mr. Percival and the twins were floating high above the Island of Sodor. And Duncan felt so happy, he thought his boiler would burst. Blue sea. It has fields of green and sandy yellow beaches. There are rivers, streams and lots of trees where the birds sing. There are windmills and a coal mine and docks where visitors to the island arrive. The island also has lots and lots of railway lines. Who's that puffing down the track? It's Thomas. Hello, Thomas. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Island of Sodor. The Man in the Hills. Thomas puffs proudly all over the Island of Sodor. He is especially happy to visit his friends on the narrow gauge railway. There is always something special to do or to see in the high hills. One day, Thomas puffed into the wharf. Lots of his friends were there. Hello! It was the Thin Controller's birthday. The little engines had a lot to do before they could go to his party. Thomas was excited. I've brought a present from the Fat Controller. It's a special tent to have the birthday party in. We have special presents too. I'm taking decorations. And I'm taking flowers. We're taking banners and balloons. They were all very excited. I'm going to tell him a Man in the Hills story. They are his favourites. Thomas had never heard of the Man in the Hills. He was a very tall man, dressed all in white, and he lived high in the hills. No one has ever found him. An idea flew into Thomas's funnel. Maybe I can find him and bring him to Mr. Percival's party. That would be the most special present of all. I can help you. I know the hills better than anyone. No, thank you. I'm sure I can find him on my own. Thomas was uncoupled from his flatbed. Please don't leave for the party without me. And he chuffed quickly away. Thomas raced through the hills. The Man in the Hills, the Man in the Hills. I know that I'll find him. I'm sure that I will. He chuffed to himself. Thomas puffed up to a hillside halt. There was a man dressed all in white. It's the Man in the Hills, he thought excitedly to himself. Please come with me to see Mr. Percival. Yes, Thomas. Right away. So the man climbed on board. Thomas puffed proudly into the wharf. I found the Man in the Hills. The man stepped from the cab. I'm not the Man in the Hills. I'm the dairyman. Thomas was surprised. Fizzling fireboxes. Skarloey and Rheneas giggled. We can help you find the Man in the Hills. No, thank you. And Thomas steamed quickly away. Thomas searched high and low. The Man in the Hills, the Man in the Hills. I know that I'll find him. I'm sure that I will, he huffed to himself. Thomas chuffed towards the mill. A man was waiting nearby. He was white from head to foot. This must be the Man in the Hills, thought Thomas. Please come with me to see Mr. Percival. Right away, Thomas. So the man climbed on board. Thomas puffed into the wharf. I've found the Man in the Hills. The man stepped down. I'm not the Man in the Hills. I'm the miller. Thomas could see the miller was no longer white. All the flour had blown off him. Thomas was upset. The miller was worried. I still have to make the birthday cake for the party. And I have to make the ice cream. The little engines were cross. You said you'd bring the best present of all. Now Mr. Percival doesn't have any presents, and we're all late. Thomas felt terrible. I wanted to find the most special present all on my own, but all I've done is spoil the party for everyone, especially for Mr. Percival. So Thomas asked Skarloey and Rheneas to take the party tent. Please, hurry. The dairyman and the miller boarded Thomas, and Thomas raced quickly away. Thomas was determined to put everything right. Thomas delivered the dairyman to the dairy to make the ice cream. and delivered the miller to the mill. At last the cake was baked, and Thomas chuffed quickly away with it. Thomas met Freddie at a junction. Freddie was on his way to the party. "I have to get the birthday cake to the party as quickly as I can. Please, help me find a shortcut." Freddie was happy to help. "Come on now, follow me." And together they puffed quickly away. Thomas and Freddie stopped at the Green Hills Junction. Suddenly, Thomas gasped. "Bust my boiler! Look!" There, all in white, was a man. He was carved into the hillside. He shone in the moonlight. "It's the man in the hills. Thomas, you found him." Suddenly, Thomas had an idea. "Freddie, please bring Mr. Percival here with all the engines." And Freddie raced away. Soon all the engines were gathered by the man in the hills. The engines gasped, and everyone was delighted. There, far away and high up in the high hills, Sir Handel was ready to tell his story. And Mr. Percival had the best birthday present ever, from all of the engines. It's Thomas. Hello, Thomas. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Island of Sodor. Tram Trouble. Thomas the tank engine and Toby the steam tram are very good friends. Toby always tells Thomas when he's worried, and Thomas is always happy to help Toby. One bright morning, Thomas puffed into Arlesdale End. "Hello, Toby. You look happy. The Fat Controller has asked me to lead the parade at the first Great Waterton Festival." Thomas was pleased for his friend. "That's because you're the only steam tram on Sodor. Everyone will cheer for you." Thomas puffed quickly away. The Fat Controller was waiting for him at Great Waterton. He had 3 important jobs to do. Thomas raced into Great Waterton. Fizzling fireboxes. Waiting on the rails was another steam tram. "Thomas, this is Flora. She's the new steam tram on Sodor." Flora smiled her sunniest smile. "Hello, Thomas." Hello. "Flora is to lead the parade with Toby." Thomas gasped. "Take Flora to meet Toby. Then Toby must bring Flora back here for the parade." Thomas was worried. Toby thinks he's leading the parade all by himself, thought Thomas. Now he will be very upset. I must keep Flora away from Toby until after the parade. Thomas and Flora arrived at the junction. Suddenly, an idea flew into Thomas's funnel. "I will take Flora to do one of my jobs before we go to Arlesdale End," he chuffed to himself. "By then, Toby will have left to lead the parade." "Let's go to the woodyard first. It won't take long." "That sounds exciting." So they raced away to the woodyard. Thomas collected a flatbed of heavy logs. "Now we can meet Toby." Flora was pleased. "Hooray!" she peeped prettily. They set off. "Toby, Toby, you must go. Hurry now to lead the show," Thomas puffed to himself. Flora and Thomas waited at the junction to Toby's shed. It looked empty. "Come on, Flora. Flora pumped her pistons perkily. Suddenly, Thomas saw steam coming from Toby's shed. Cinders and ashes, he thought. Toby's still there. Toby mustn't see Flora. Flora, I've just remembered. We must go to the quarry first. Flora was surprised. If you say so, Thomas. And they puffed away. At the shunting yard, Thomas was coupled up to the stone trucks. Now we can meet Toby. That made Flora very happy. Toby, Toby, please have gone. Lead the show, be proud and strong, Thomas puffed to himself. Thomas and Flora arrived at Arsdale End. This time, Thomas was sure Toby's shed was empty. Come on, Flora. Oh, no, thought Thomas. Toby's still there. Toby mustn't see Flora. Flora, we're late to pick up my load. We must go to the docks. If you say so, Thomas. And they puffed quickly away. At the docks, Thomas was coupled up to his large load to take to Great Waterton. Thomas was sure Toby would now be leading the parade. Come on, Flora! Flora's axles ached, but Thomas steamed strongly. Thomas and Flora puffed up to the junction. Then there was trouble. Flora had chuffed too far. She had run out of coal. I'm sorry, Thomas. Flora's wheels wobbled weakly. Thomas felt bad. He knew it was his fault. Then he heard a chuff and a puff and a ring of a bell. It was Toby. Thomas, I've been waiting for you. Who's that? Cinders and ashes. Toby had met Flora. Neither of them was at the parade. The fat controller would be very cross. Thomas couldn't have felt worse. Flora, this is Toby. Toby, this is Flora. Toby looked very happy. Thomas was surprised. I wanted to tell you, Thomas, that I was too scared to lead the parade all by myself, but now Flora and I can lead it together. I thought I knew what you wanted, Toby, but I was wrong. Now Thomas had to quickly put right his mistake. Flora, take my coal. I'll pick up more. Puff as fast as you can to Great Waterton. Toby and Flora soon puffed away. Later, Thomas chuffed in to Great Waterton. The parade was ready to leave. Thomas's flatbed was uncovered. Flora gasped. She had a wonderful new tram car. Toby was pleased. Thomas watched his two friends lead the first Great Waterton parade. The children cheered. The brass band boomed. Now I have another best friend, and she's a steam tram too. And Thomas smiled his happy. Henry gets it wrong. The Sodor wishing tree is a very old tree. It's older than Edward, older than Sir Handel. It's even older than the Fat Controller. Some say it's the oldest thing on the island. All the engines and children love to make wishes whenever they see the tree. Especially Henry. He thinks the wishing tree is magical. He whistles whenever he passes. One day the Fat Controller arrived with some very bad news. A summer storm struck Sodor last night. The wishing tree was hit by lightning. All the engines were upset. Henry was the most upset of all. Some special woodsmen are arriving at Brendam Docks. Henry, you must take them to the wishing tree right away. Henry knew this was an important job. They have to be back at Brendam Docks by tea time. That's when their boat leaves.
Yes, sir.
And Henry puffed away as fast as he could. He chuffed towards Brendam Docks. At a junction, Henry decided to take the track that passed the wishing tree. Henry arrived at the wishing tree. It wasn't standing tall anymore. Some leaves were gone and some branches were broken. Sometimes, Henry, special woodsmen have to cut trees down.
Oh, no.
Now Henry was even more upset. Henry took the track to Brendam. His boiler bubbled and his steam sighed. But then he had to stop. Toby was blocking the line. He had snapped a piston rod. Oh dear, I can't get to Brendam if the track is blocked. Then Henry had an idea. If all the tracks were blocked, no one would be able to get to the tree, he thought. Then no one would be able to cut the tree down. I'll take your trucks for you, Toby. He buffered up to Toby's truck. Toby's driver coupled Henry to the trucks. Henry pumped his pistons and chuffed back down the track to the wishing tree. Then Henry saw Thomas at a signal. He had a long line of empty trucks to take to the quarry. I'll take your trucks for you, Thomas. Thomas happily agreed. So Henry reversed onto Thomas's track, and he slowly wheeshed away. Then Henry saw Percy at a water tower. Percy had to take truckloads of empty milk churns to the farm. Percy, I'll take your trucks for you.
Thank you, Henry.
Percy shunted his trucks onto the main line. Henry buffered up to Percy's trucks and whooshed away. Then Henry saw Emily. She had empty trucks to take to the coaling plant. I'll take your trucks for you, Emily. Thank you, Henry. So Emily shunted her train onto the main line. And Henry coupled up. He chuffed happily away. Henry had the longest line of trucks a big engine could pull. At last, Henry puffed to the Wishing Tree Junction. He left Emily and Percy's trucks on one track. Then he shunted Thomas's trucks onto another. Finally, he shunted Toby's trucks onto the express line. All the lines to the Wishing Tree were blocked. Now nobody can get through. The Wishing Tree will be safe. At Brendam Docks, the special woodsmen were waiting. Henry hadn't arrived, so the docks manager asked Salty to take the woodsman.
Aye, yes, sir.
Salty tried to get to the Wishing Tree, but all the tracks were blocked with trucks. Henry was still feeling very happy. Then he heard Harold hovering over him. Henry, old chap, the special woodsmen can't get through to the Wishing Tree. They're the only ones that can help. Without them, the tree will have to be cut down. Oh dear, the woodsmen are here to save the Wishing Tree, not cut it down. I have made a very big mistake. Henry felt terrible. Now I must put everything right as fast as I can. And he chuffed quickly away. First, Henry took Toby's trucks to the depot. Then he took Thomas's trucks to the quarry. Next, he took Emily's trucks to the coaling plant. Finally, he took Percy's trucks of empty milk churns to the farm. At last, all the tracks were clear. Henry collected the special woodsman. Thank you, Salty. Then he wheeshed quickly away. Soon, Henry chuffed up to the wishing tree. The woodsmen were ready to start their very special work. They cleared and propped. They clipped and chopped. And Henry helped too. Soon the wishing tree was standing tall again. The wishing tree was saved. I wish the wishing tree would last forever and ever. The special woodsman cheered, and Henry smiled his biggest smile ever. The island of Sodor is surrounded by beautiful blue sea. It has fields of green and sandy yellow beaches. There are rivers, streams and lots of trees where the birds sing. There are windmills and a coal mine and docks where visitors to the island arrive. The island also has lots and lots of railway lines. Who's that puffing down the track? It's Thomas. Hello, Thomas. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Island of Sodor. Thomas and the Billboard. Knapford is the biggest station on the island of Sodor. All the engines love its bustling busyness. Today was a very special day. It was Knapford Station's birthday and there was going to be a grand party. All the engines were very excited. They were to have their photograph taken. The photograph was going to be put up on a billboard. Thomas felt very proud. I've never been on a billboard before. But the photographer was having trouble fitting all the engines into the photograph. Move back a bit there, James. And you forward, Percy. Yes, that's good, that's good. Now, Diesel, can you move in? Diesel moved in. The camera flashed. Thomas didn't know that Diesel had rolled right in front of him. And neither did Diesel. Later that day, Thomas puffed into Marron Station to pick up the new billboard. He was very excited. But when Thomas saw it, he was very disappointed. Diesel's right in front of me, Thomas thought sadly. No one can see me at all. Thomas puffed towards Knapford. Diesel moved in front of me on purpose, puffed Thomas to himself. Thomas felt cross. He wasn't looking where he was going. Then there was trouble. There was a cow on the line. Thomas turned quickly into a siding just in time. He hit the buffers and the billboard flew into the lake. Thomas went to tell the photographer what had happened. Don't worry, I'll take another photograph. Tell all the engines to meet me at Tidmouth Sheds. Thomas was about to set off. Then he saw Diesel. Thomas knew he should tell Diesel about the new photograph, but Thomas was worried. What if Diesel spoils this one too, thought Thomas. So Thomas didn't tell Diesel. Soon, all the engines except Diesel were back at Tidmouth. Gordon was cross. Mr. Giggles, the famous clown, is coming to the party tonight. I must collect him from the airport. I must not be late. And I have to pick up the brass band from Brendam Docks. And I have to collect the bunting and decorations from Wellsworth. OK, I'll fetch the photographer right away. Thomas was steaming to Marron. Then he saw Diesel. Diesel was puffing straight to Tidmouth. Thomas was worried. Now Diesel would find out about the new photograph. So Thomas turned onto a branch line and he raced back to Tidmouth. "There's been a mistake. You'll all have to come back later." The engines were very cross. Soon they had all gone, and Diesel trundled straight by. Later, Thomas had gathered the engines again. Then Thomas went to Maron to collect the photographer. Just as the photographer was climbing on board, Thomas saw Diesel. Now Diesel would see the photographer and he would find out about the new photograph. So Thomas wheeshed lots of steam. It billowed from his boiler and filled the whole station. So Diesel didn't see the photographer and he trundled straight by. "The steam has made my camera wet." "I'm sorry, sir." "We'll have to wait for it to dry. Tell the engines to come back later to Tidmouth." So all the engines came back later, instead of doing their jobs. At last the photographer was ready. No one had noticed Diesel wasn't there. Thomas was very relieved. But just then, Diesel oiled round the bend. Diesel was surprised to see all the engines. He screeched to a halt. Rolls of bunting went everywhere. "No one told me there was another photograph." "But I asked Thomas to tell everyone." All the engines looked at Thomas. Thomas felt terrible. The Fat Controller was very cross. "Gordon, you were meant to pick up Mr. Giggles, the famous clown. Emily, you were meant to pick up the brass band. And James, you were meant to pick up the bunting and decorations. None of you arrived, so Diesel had to do all your jobs. And now he is late to do his own work." Thomas was very upset. "It's all my fault, sir. I didn't want Diesel to know about the new photograph. In the last one, he moved right in front of me, on purpose." "I did not. The photographer told me to move." "I did. Perhaps you rolled too far." Thomas knew then he'd made a mistake. "I'm sorry, Diesel. I was wrong to think you did it on purpose. And I'm very sorry for causing all this trouble, sir." Soon all the engines were lined up. The new photograph was taken. "Sir, if I do all Diesel's jobs, can he collect the new billboard?" "That's a wonderful idea, Thomas." Diesel agreed. For the rest of the day, Thomas worked hard. He did all Diesel's jobs. And Diesel picked up the new billboard, just in time for the celebrations. It was a wonderful party. There were clowns and a brass band. Diesel and Thomas agreed that the new billboard was the best billboard they'd ever seen. Percy and the Bandstand. It was summertime on the Island of Sodor. The Fat Controller was in Great Waterton with Miss Jenny, Jack and Alfie. They were building a new bandstand. There was to be an open-air concert that evening. It was a special surprise for Lady Hatt. She loved brass band. All the engines were busy helping to make the day special. Edward was bringing special parcels. Thomas was bringing the banners and bunting. And Percy was bringing gravel for the pathways. Thank you, Percy. Right on time. Percy tried to shunt the trucks into place, but the trucks decided to be troublesome.
Hold back! Hold back!
Percy pushed and pushed, but the trucks wouldn't move. Percy knew what he had to do. He had to use his do-as-I-say whistle. So Percy blew his whistle long and loudly. The trucks knew that when Percy blew his do-as-I-say whistle, they had to do what he wanted. It meant Percy was in charge. Soon, all the trucks were in line. The Fat Controller bustled over to Percy.
I hope I didn't blow my whistle too loudly.
Not at all, Percy. You showed you were in charge. Percy was relieved. Now, I need you to collect Lady Hatt and bring her to the surprise concert. You must be here by tea time, understand?
Yes, sir.
You mustn't tell her where she's going, or it will spoil the surprise.
Don't worry, sir, I won't.
Percy had collected the carriage. He had to meet Lady Hatt at Maithwaite Station. It was a long way from Great Waterton. At last, Percy puffed into Maithwaite Station.
All aboard! Sir Topham Hatt has sent me to take you on a special trip.
Oh, that sounds lovely. First of all, I'd like to go to the duck pond. And Lady Hatt climbed on board. Percy was worried. He was supposed to take Lady Hatt to the bandstand. That was her special trip. Percy knew there wasn't time to go to the duck pond, but he didn't dare tell Lady Hatt. He thought she might be cross. So he puffed to the duck pond. Lady Hatt stood by the duck pond. She liked watching the ducks. They quacked and quacked. But Percy wanted them to be on their way. At last, Lady Hatt was back on board.
Next, I'd like to go to the windmill.
Percy was very worried. He knew there wasn't time to go to the windmill, but he didn't feel brave enough to tell Lady Hatt. So Percy puffed away. When they arrived at the windmill, Dusty Miller was there. Lady Hatt was pleased. Hello, Dusty. How are you?
We're going to be really late now,
Percy huffed to himself. At last, Lady Hatt finished talking to Dusty.
Now, Percy, I'd like to see the bluebells in the woods. It would be the perfect end to my special trip.
Percy was more worried than ever. Percy puffed to the woods, but with every puff he was getting later and later, and further from Lady Hatt's surprise. Percy and Lady Hatt arrived at the wood. Lady Hatt wandered off to admire the bluebells. Percy waited and waited. Suddenly, Thomas puffed up to Percy.
Where have you been, Percy? The Fat Controller is cross. He doesn't want Lady Hatt to be late.
Percy didn't want the Fat Controller to be cross. He didn't want the surprise to be spoiled.
Don't worry, I'll have her there on time.
So Thomas puffed away. Percy couldn't see Lady Hatt anywhere. Percy knew what he had to do. He had to use his do-as-I-say whistle. Percy blew his whistle long and loudly. Lady Hatt came out of the woods. Percy, what do you want?
I'm taking you to a surprise. That's your special trip. Oh, I love surprises. Why didn't you tell me? Because I thought you'd be cross with me if I told you what to do. And now we might be late. We must hurry.
So Lady Hatt climbed quickly on board, and Percy raced away. Percy steamed back to Great Waterton as fast as he could. The band was warming up. Jack and Alfie were very excited. Percy had arrived with Lady Hatt on time. The band started to play. Lady Hatt was delighted.
Oh, what a lovely surprise. Thank you for bringing me here on time, Percy.
And thank you, Percy, for keeping it a surprise.
Percy was pleased.
His do-as-I-say whistle had saved the day. It had been really useful, and so... Toby's special surprise. Toby is a very cheerful steam tram. He isn't as big or as strong as some of the steam engines, but he's always happy to help and willing to work. One spring morning, Toby chuffed cheerfully into Tidmouth sheds.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
The fat controller had arrived. Henry, you are to take the mare to the Scottish castle. Emily, you are to take a party of school children to Black Lock. And Thomas, you must take me to Great Waterton. Toby waited. He hoped he would be given a special job too. And you, Toby, are to go to your shed and wait. Toby was disappointed. His boiler barely bubbled. This afternoon, you must pick up workmen and take them to Great Waterton.
Yes, sir.
Toby watched his friends steam off to their special jobs. Waiting at his shed wasn't a special job at all. He puffed sadly away. Toby wondered why the other engines had been given specials and he hadn't. I know why, he thought. All the other engines have found something special. Emily found the seals at Black Lock. Henry found the flagpole for the Scottish castle. And Thomas found Great Waterton. If I find something, the fat controller will give me a special as well. I've plenty of time before I pick up the workmen. Toby puffed off to find something special. Toby steamed into the hills. Toby looked and looked, but he could see nothing special at all. Suddenly, Toby stopped. He could see a big red bird in a very tall tree. I found something special, he huffed to himself. Toby puffed closer. Now he could see it wasn't a big red bird. It was an old Wellington boot.
Oh dear, thought Toby. That's not special.
And he puffed on. Toby steamed deeper into the hills and away from Great Waterton. Suddenly, he stopped. Toby could see something glistening and glittering in the afternoon sun. It's a treasure chest, thought Toby excitedly. I've found something very special. Toby puffed closer. Now he could see it wasn't a treasure chest at all. It was a rusty truck of old tin cans.
Oh dear, that's not special.
Then he heard a whistle. It was Whiff. He had come to take the truck to the rubbish yards.
Hello, Toby. Why are you looking at old tin cans?
Toby felt very silly. He chuffed quickly away. Toby puffed sadly to a junction. Thomas was on his way back to Tidmouth. Hello, Toby. The fat controller's waiting for you at Great Waterton.
Bus my buffers.
He had spent too much time looking for something special. Now he was late, so Toby steamed quickly away. Toby huffed to the halt. The workmen boarded Henrietta, and they puffed quickly away. Toby knew he had to hurry to get to Great Waterton. Then Toby saw something bright shining beside the track. Maybe this is special. Now the Fat Controller won't be cross with me, Toby thought. But it wasn't something special. It was an old piece of metal stuck in the bushes. Then there was trouble. Toby had puffed so far looking for something special, he had run out of coal. Toby felt terrible. He hadn't found anything special, he hadn't delivered the workman, and he hadn't been a really useful steam tram. Toby had to do something quickly. It was getting late. Toby asked the workmen to hit the piece of metal as hard as they could with their tools. "And I will ring my bell as loudly as I can. Someone at Great Waterton is sure to hear us and come to our rescue." The Fat Controller was waiting at Great Waterton Station. He had heard the banging and Toby's bell ringing. "Come along, Whiff. It sounds as though Toby's in trouble." The Fat Controller arrived on Whiff. "Toby, what are you doing here?" Toby felt very silly. "I'm sorry, sir. I ran out of coal because I wanted to find something special. I thought then you would think that I am as special as the other engines." "But Toby, you are special." "But only when I'm really useful. I know that now." "You'll always be special. You are the oldest steam tram on Sodor." Toby felt very happy. "Now, let's fetch Rocky and get that old metal to the smelters." Rocky quickly lifted the metal out of the bushes. Toby gasped, and so did the Fat Controller. On the other side of the metal was a picture of a steam tram. It looked just like Toby. "Toby, you have found the sign for the Great Waterton tram shed." Toby's pistons popped with pride. Now that's special. And Toby couldn't have felt happier to be a steam tram.